It was through some of the darkest times of my life when spirit began to make itself known to me through signs and clues from the other side. It helped me understand that I was not alone, that I was connected, and there was more to life than just this experience. I call those magic moments. I'm Christy Simoncelli, and I'll be your host for this podcast, Unreasonable Magic, where I will share some of the most compelling stories that cannot be explained away through logic from my work as a psychic medium, an astrologer, and a human design consultant, working with clients in my own life. Please join me for the magic. Hey, everybody, and welcome to Unreasonable Magic. I am Christy Simoncelli, your host. This is episode 12. 12, such an auspicious number. But here we are. It is late August, so as I'm coming to you with this in the midst of eclipse season. And I'm in between client sessions today. Today is my reading day, so I've been working a lot with spirit and clients. And I just want to say, if you have lost someone who's in spirit and you have any doubt about how they feel or how they're connected to you, these people love you like crazy. It always, when I'm in the midst of readings, that I'm just overwhelmed by the amount of feeling that comes through for people, the way people see the small bits of things that you're doing every day. It's just really fascinating. And I will never not be in awe of the way that spirit manipulates visions and images and signs and symbols and smells and words and cues to get me to say what needs to be said in order to land for my clients. So I just want to start this episode with that because I'm, like I said, in the midst of client sessions today, and I'm really feeling the love from these folks. And also just as a reminder that you might show up wanting to hear from a specific person or talk about a specific topic, but trust that spirit usually has a better sense of what you need than what you want. And so one of my sessions earlier today, there was a woman who had wanted to hear from a specific person, and I said, I think the things that came forward are actually what you needed to hear today. And I think that resonated with her. So we always trust the process here when we're doing readings. So anyway, all that to say, I'm always blown away by the connection that is possible. But that is not what this episode is about today. This episode, which was, again, not what I had planned. I had planned something else. But this is going to be about magic. And when I talk about magic, I'm not talking about magic wands and Harry Potter. I'm talking about the way that the world is full of synchronicity, timing, connection, even in the simplest of forms, and how it shows up for us. Exactly like these readings, when we need it. Not when we think we need it, not what we think we need, but when we need it. So I was reminded of that earlier this week. I was working on some sessions. Was working from my home office, and as I was heading downstairs to grab a glass of water before our session started, I heard knocking at my back door, and I thought, well, who the hell is that? Like, what's going on? Why is someone knocking on my back door? And lo and behold, when I looked, it was not a someone, it was a something. There was a Downy Woodpecker on the screen of my patio knocking on the glass. And so I was, of course, because I'm Christy, I was stymied by that. In my many years on this earth, I've never had a woodpecker land on my door and start pecking away. And now, mind you, for the contrarians out there, yes, I'm sure there was a bug. I'm sure that's what the problem was. And they were eating bugs off my patio, so I should be grateful for that. But to this lady's way of thinking, that's a sign. Okay, so that's cool. Animals are definitely part of our spirit language and the magic that shows up in the world. And so I had to, of course, investigate that. I have a long history with woodpeckers. So while someone else might consult their animal book or their bird book to see what sign of a woodpecker might have to do with, I did that. I have a long history with the woodpecker. I had to go to my Substack, and when I searched by keyword, I actually have 6 articles about woodpeckers. So it sounds like I have a pecker problem, but also clearly this is a totem of sorts for me. So When I say all this, you're probably thinking, "Oh, she's nuts. That's great. She's talking to the birds." And I don't really talk to them, but I do let them be a sign for me in a big way. Birds are a huge way that I make connection with spirit and with my higher self and guidance from all around. So, with that said, at first I didn't have a lot of time to think about it because I was entering a client session. And would you believe that in my second session of the day, a client also had a woodpecker on her patio over the weekend. So then I thought, oh, well, maybe this is about that client. It could be about that client. But it was not till the next day when I was driving around in my car in a mindless way, because that's when I make my most connections, is when I'm in a mindless way, that I heard the voice of the woodpecker in my mind say, "And when did you stop believing in magic?" And of course, I have not stopped believing in magic because that is the name of this podcast, Unreasonable Magic, but also because that is primarily how I live my life and what I allow to be a guidance system of sorts. My dreams, cues from the external, all that kind of thing, I let at least have some say in how I'm seeing things in the moment. But this woodpecker really caught my eye. I've been pushing a lot lately. I've been on the edge, I'd say, of burnout, pushing pretty hard this summer with a lot of the things I've had lined up, big opportunities, big moments to take advantage of, but not really honoring my own energy and my boundaries. And so this has led to this state of fatigue that I'm living in. But it has also given me sort of a different perspective on what it is I'm doing. Instead of being led by the opportunities, the things that are magically presented, I'm thinking more about big picture stuff, which isn't really how I operate. So when that woodpecker landed on my patio and caught me off guard, I thought, okay, yeah, I got to reconnect to what's going on here, which prompted me to want to tell you some woodpecker stories. This is like, you're like, okay, click, hanging up the podcast now. But I promise, bear with me. These are some of my favorite, most magical stories that I could share. And so I want to talk first about animals in general and why I think we can learn from them. This first story is going to go all the way back to 2018, and it's not going to have anything to do with woodpeckers. But in 2018, I was still working in cancer prevention research. I was at a conference at the National Institutes of Health. So I always loved going there. I was trying to fit in and be smart and listen amid all the researchers, the clinicians, and the scientists in the space. It was a cancer conference because that was the field I worked in at the time. And I was sitting and listening to a lecture from a very brilliant person, and they were talking about lab rats. Okay. They spoke about the lab rats because they referenced a study where they had injected cancer cells into lab rats to watch what would happen. The control rats, so everybody got cancer cells, but the controlled rats were the ones who didn't get to do anything extra. That's basically what they say. The control rats were isolated and they were left alone in their rat cages. So they didn't have any friends, there was no socialization, they didn't have any toys to play with. And then they had other rats who were the ones not in control, the ones who got the remedy, if you will, of socialization. They had equipment to play with in their cages. They had other friends to play with in their cages, by rat friends, I mean. And not surprisingly, the control rats that were the alone guys died faster and their tumors progressed quicker. The other rats experienced slower growing tumors and had lower inflammatory biomarkers. I'm just sitting there quietly having my own spiritual experience that I haven't really made reconciliation with in my mind and what was actually happening, but being aware of this energy around love and the power of love. And here I am at a scientific conference where I think that's not even on the table. And this woman begins talking about these lab rats who did better with lab rat friends who also had cancer, but that they could play with and hang around. So if you've been listening for a while, I'm kind of stuck on this idea of social isolation and its impact on our health and why we need each other and why connection is so important. Whether you're talking about spirit stuff, woodpeckers, rats, whatever you're talking about, we all need love. That's been my overarching theme forever and always since I started writing my blog back in 2020. We all need each other. like it or don't, and we're all connected, like it or don't. The energy is all from the same pile. And so when we are separated from it, we get sick. Okay. Not to say this is what gives cancer. These lab rats were injected with cancer. That's how they got sick. But the impact of their environment made it so they got less sick. Okay. So I remember sitting there at that conference and thinking, where am I right now? Like, what is actually happening? Am I not at NIH, at the National Institutes of Health, on this campus with these brilliant, very left brain people talking about connection, community, and love at a national science conference? And so basically, here I'm sitting there. They're validating everything that I had already been experiencing and studying in the last, years leading up to that point. So we can come to the conclusion that rats who have other rats and things to do lead healthier lives, even when injected with cancer. Got it. So I got home from that conference. My husband, Dave, who is an electrician, he was working at someone's house. And while he was there, he had cut his hand pretty badly. So he called me and asked me if I would come over, bring him some bandages. And I, of course, grabbed all the things, the peroxide, the Band-Aids, and calendula. If you don't use calendula, note to the wise, please do. It's magic, and it can help any sort of skin contusions, burns, cuts. It's magic, and it heals really quickly. But as I pulled up, I could see that the homeowner was outside with him, already helping him with his hand. And as it turns out, I knew her. So I hadn't seen her in many years. She greeted me. We talked. She shared how her husband had been sick with cancer. So I inquired about his health. She told me that he was in full remission. His diagnosis had been grim initially, and their doctor instructed him to have his affairs in order just in case. So this was just when he was about to begin treatment, and he learns that his daughter was expecting a baby. Now, the daughter had been told she probably would not be able to have a baby and was preparing to adopt one. In having this news of his pending grandchild, this planted a seed in this man that he was determined to be there to see this baby, to see his daughter and to see the grandchild that everyone had wanted so much. The wife went on to tell me that as a family, they decided to make lifestyle modifications, to cut back on work, to eat healthier. They wanted to be there for their kids and grandkids and for each other. So he got involved in a clinical trial, which that's a story for another day, but clinical trials are where all of the magic happens in cancer research and understanding how cancer works and how people can do better with it. The trial had about a 50-50 success rate, or put simply, half the people did not survive and the other half did. The doctors later told her that from their preliminary research, the people who died more often didn't have anyone to rely on. They had no social support. They didn't have people. They lacked connection. And I thought, okay, hold up. So the rats need friends and things to play with. They will do better. The people need people and they will do better. So we're here at this highly evolved space, but animals are so much like this. They have brains and they have nervous systems. They're wired to connection. We are wired for connection and love. And quite frankly, this set a tone for everything I would later go on to do. And so in the same year, when first my kids left for college and I was just knocked onto my knees, that was really hard for me. And then because they were twins, they left at the same time. So I'm soft. So that was a lot. Hit me like a ton of bricks. Moms out there, I know you feel me. And then my mom gets sick. And you know this. You've heard me talk about this stuff already. If you've read my blog, if you've listened to the podcast, she got sick. She died within 6 weeks. And there was all kinds of cues around that, signs, dreams I had before it even happened, all the things. And I dismissed those because I thought, well, she's so healthy that would never happen. And while that chapter in my life was truly an utter nightmare, we were also surrounded by so much love. We had so many people. And I'm not saying that to brag. I'm saying that as a blessing. That was a blessing for us. The beautiful part about all of that is how we were held by our community. And these not even people we knew. Some of them were strangers. They were friends of friends, this kind of thing. And I got to tell you that was nothing short of fascinating. This is the kind of magic that I'm talking about. The love that comes from community, that helps people be healthier, that helps people live richer, fuller lives, that helps people find support when they need it. And it doesn't maybe feel like magic to you, but I'm here to say if spending more time with another rat can help someone heal or help another rat heal, then I think that there's something happening there synergistically. But back to the woodpeckers and why I think we can learn from the animals. So when I was growing up, my grandmother adored birds. She was the original bird nerd in our family, and I haven't spent a lot of time talking about the birds on this podcast, but I love birds. I feed them. My grandmother was the first bird feeder in our family. My mom also followed suit, and then I follow suit. We feed the birds. We are bird people. Anyway, when I was a kid, my grandmother especially loved the pileated woodpecker, which, if you don't know, the pileated woodpecker is a giant woodpecker. It looks like Woody Woodpecker. He has a big red plume on his head, gigantic beak, and when he pecks at something, you know, because it's pretty substantial. So my grandmother loved these. I never saw them. She would speak of them, and I was like, Grandma, I don't know. Has this bird really come around? She really loved the bird. She would tell us all about it and how it made its sounds. She said she would talk about the sounds it made, and she would call it. She would go outside and go, worker, worker, worker. So yeah, this is real. This is what my grandmother would do. So this is the family I came from. These are my people. Anyway, so my grandmother is, to me, very connected to the pileated woodpecker. We had a lot of red-headed woodpeckers in our yard, and she always said they were crazy because they were dive bombing things and such. And they are a little bit erratic if you have any red-headed woodpeckers around you. But I digress, as I often do. So after my mom passed that year, 2018, and I was knee-deep in all of the muck of that, plus the spiritual stuff that was emerging that I had really no idea what to do with, I had a dream about some pileated woodpeckers. My cousin had given me a book by the psychic medium Suzanne Giesemann, who's a great medium, but also a very prolific writer. She's written a lot of books about her experiences with spirit. And Suzanne actually was a naval commander for 20 years before she got into this field of work, which she did after her stepdaughter was struck by lightning while she was pregnant. And it just really shook her, and she wanted to understand. She wanted to find Susan. And so she's written lots of books about her. So if you have read her books, I find her books very, very good, very grounded. I like her approach of how she works with spirit. But at any rate, I had a dream about Suzanne, and I were having breakfast in Hawaii, which is where my grandmother, the woodpecker lover, was from. So definitely, is there a grandmother connection here? Possibly. So I'm having this dream. There are 7 pileated woodpeckers who hop across the patio of the place we're eating breakfast. And I don't remember much else about the dream, but there were 7 of those. Those pileated woodpeckers tend to be kind of a shy bird. You're not going to see them land on your bird feeder too frequently. They might, but not common. Anyway, and after that, I begin to see the pileated woodpecker all the time. So for all the years that my grandmother went on talking about him, I never really saw him in the yard. After all this happens, I start to see it pretty often, which is pretty cool. In fact, one time I saw the pileated woodpecker, and it prompted me, again, it did not speak to me. I'm not completely insane, but the vision of seeing this pileated woodpecker at the moment I was contemplating something prompted me to spend 2 weeks writing about something magical every single day in my blog. And I did that. And I was concerned at first, like, well, what if nothing magical happens? But it turns out when you look for magic, you find magic. So I had plenty to write about. And on the very last day of my writing project, I had taken a walk because it was a nice day in the spring, which in Buffalo is hard to come by. And I was walking and I tripped because I was looking at the birds. So I tripped, I sprained my ankle, I was hobbling home. And as I'm hobbling home on this last day of my magic 2 weeks experience, I'm like, this is not magical at all. I was very put off. I stumble down the road, and I'm just a couple doors away from my own house. And I see on the side of the road a child's magic wand, like a toy magic wand, like black with a little white cap on the end, like you're picturing when I talk about magic anyway. This is what I find on the side of the road. And I, of course, was just tickled. I was laughing. I was super entertained. And needless to say, I wrote about that on my last day of my 2-week magical experience, which was prompted by the pileated woodpecker. I've told myself as I'm going through this process of seeing all these pileated woodpeckers that by the time I see the 7th one, I'll have established myself. I'll be like Suzanne. I'll be a really good medium. And I think I probably was a really good medium before. But in 2025, Suzanne released a documentary about Wolf. the wolf story. It was a book she wrote, and then they made a film about this because it was so compelling. So I knew she was coming to Lilydale, and my daughter and I got tickets for her to go with me to see Suzanne Giesemann at Lilydale. And now remember, I dreamt about Suzanne and the pileated woodpeckers years before. And we listen to her lecture, we watch the film. It's very good. It's interesting. If you can catch it somewhere, I would definitely recommend watching it. Suzanne's great. And this is the truth. This is the truthiest truth ever. We were getting ready to leave a few minutes early because it was on Memorial Day weekend, and I had to prepare food for the family dinner. Plus, I had to pee, and Grace, I think, was ready to go. So we head out a few minutes early to get a jump on the traffic. And walking back to our car from where they were holding the filming, walking down the road at Lilydale. So just as a side, if you've never been to Lilydale, think like cute little houses, and you don't drive fast through Lilydale. It's like 10 miles an hour. It's a small community. Anyway, walking down the streets of Lilydale to get back to our car, and in the middle of the road, just sitting there, is a pileated woodpecker standing in the middle of the road. I don't know what I did. I remember making a loud noise and being like, what the hell? And I'm so glad Grace was there, because I think had I not had a witness, I may have thought I conjured the whole thing up. So I even wrote Suzanne an email after that, and her team passed it on. She responded to me, so I felt like kind of a big deal. But anyway, crazy validation around that. So to get back to the point, when a woodpecker lands on my patio door and starts pounding on it to get my attention, I have to pay attention. And I have to come back to my why. And I have to think about the woodpeckers in my life. And I have to get back to the magic. So I'm going to be focusing more on those wild woolly stories. I'm going to be spending more time looking for magic as opposed to some of the other things I've been doing. So I'm planting this here on the podcast so it's out in the world and it has life and teeth, and you all have to hold me accountable to it. We are going to talk more about wild stories and interesting things that come up, because I am setting my sights to find more of them. Thank you, woodpecker, who knocked on my door. Now, I will say, does the woodpecker also bring awareness around other things? Possibly. I've had some pretty interesting things come up just in the 24 hours following the woodpecker knocking on my door, but more on that as things evolve. We are in the middle of eclipse season, so take care of yourself. Ultimately, we're not trying to push or force anything. We're trying to rest. We're trying to hydrate. We're trying to stay grounded and not take the bait as much as we can, and stay in our integrity, because eclipses bring a lot at us and we get to sit with them and observe. And so it's kind of like going to the movies, but different, because it's your life. But things are a little out of whack, and that's okay. So we have our final eclipse on August 28th on the East Coast, 27th pretty much everywhere else. And I anticipate this will be a pretty powerful one for me anyway. We'll see what happens in the collective. There is a relationship between Uranus and the sun and the moon in this eclipse that could make for some sort of shock or surprise value that comes out of this. So stay tuned. Let's see what comes. And I know this podcast will have a life outside of this eclipse season, but for those who are listening real time, just take attention, see what comes up that might be some sort of a surprise component to this. Also, this eclipse, the moon is in gate 55 in human design, which is the gate of spirit. So I'm really interested to see what happens here. It's a big feeling, big love kind of energy, highs and lows, all the feelings, all the depth. So I'm really curious to see how this all shakes out. So without further ado, I will stop talking about woodpeckers. I will allow you to get back to your lives. And I, of course, thank you so much for being here with me. I encourage you to share this with a friend who might need to hear a couple interesting stories. If someone's, having an eclipse season funk, these are good stories to share, because they are indefinite proof to me of magic in our lives and the ways that it shows up in the world. Just a reminder to rate and review. I would love to hear your thoughts on the pod, but also we are looking for questions for the next episode of The Sage and the Mystic. So if you have something on your mind or on your heart that you'd love to get astrological input on, wisdom from a wise woman, please, please, please send us your questions. We'd love to hear from you. The way to do that, you can send an email to henscrossing@gmail.com, or you can use the link in the show notes to submit your question. So please get those in. We would love to help you out. Please keep looking for your own signs from spirit and come back next time for some more.